Hi, welcome to the Ramble On. I'm Brendan.
And I'm Nick. Let's get into spoilers and let's talk about Terminator Dark Fate at length.
Alright, so for a 2-hour film, it felt incredibly rushed. I want to say that first and foremost.
Yes and no. I feel like it was definitely rushed in some places, but it felt like the action scenes just dragged on and on and on.
Right.
Like the action scenes would never end, and when they had to stop and have conversations, those would go a bit too quick.
So transient. No, I mean, the beginning, they introduce the characters and then immediately segue to the action, the robots invading and what have you. I mean, they do try and give you a backstory, but it's just, it's so nonsensical.
And the fun part of this movie is that, unlike with other Terminator entries after T2, this one explicitly set itself, aside from them, made a big deal about how it's a true sequel to Terminator 2 and was doing a hard reboot on the series. Which means we get to compare it against two much, much better films, Terminator 1 and Terminator 2.
Right. I think, now that you mention that, I think that I did kind of come into this film hoping that this would be better than the other two films that it killed off.
3 films, I think.
Oh god, 3 films that it killed off, that's true.
There's T3, Terminator Genesis, and Terminator whatever the other one was.
That's right, there's 6 installments of these things. Anywho, but it didn't live up to that expectation
No.
that I foolishly placed upon it.
Yeah, so the biggest change in this film, if you were planning to see this film and were excited for it, is of course the new characters, which are Grace and Danny. Grace comes from a new future where the exact same thing happens, except now they're called Legion or something instead of Terminators.
Yeah.
Fun fact, that goes completely against the entire point and themology of Terminator 2, so...
Yeah, I agree.
Way to show them their corpse right off the bat.
Right! It just, it tried to pay a homage to the first 2 movies and then just shat on it,
it seemed like they missed the point that people like Terminator 2, not because of the T-1000, but because of the humanizing moments between the T-800 and John, or the moments where we get to see Sarah Connor and how she struggles with her PTSD of living her whole life knowing the apocalypse was coming.
Right.
There's a lot of humanizing, interesting things that are going on with this film. Whereas in Terminator Dark Fate, it seems like they just kind of clung to the idea of people really like the T-1000. What if we made the T-1000 and T-800 at once? But they also forget about his powers in a lot of places where it would be convenient for him to have them. So it gets a bit Deus Exy at times, where they have to succeed at a situation because the writers need them to keep running away and succeeding.
Right. Well...
Anyways, though, so to get into details for people who aren't aware of the movie yet, Grace is a cybernetically enhanced human. She has been sent back in the past, kind of the whoever the guy from the first Terminator was that got sent back in time.
Reese,
thank you. She is kind of the movie's Reese, but she is enhanced to be on par with Terminators.
Right.
Except she's written with the weirdest drawback I've ever seen in a movie, which is the crippling disease that she needs medicine for constantly.
No, she just goes into some kind of metabolic shock because she spends all of her energy to fight Terminators for 5 minutes and then just completely crashes.
And the weird part about this is that this is generally a thing where every time it comes up, it's immediately solved within the next few minutes.
Yeah,
which makes me wonder, why include that?
Right, because they always have a syringe magically pop up out of nowhere. Why did you even have that weakness if there was always a syringe filled with fluids on hand?
Yeah, there's even a point where they go through border patrol and get patted down, and then they pull up and find the needles on her and say, "Wow, nice job searching them, guys." They had to explicitly make them bad at their jobs to keep this plot point that's not even needed going.
No kidding! My God, you could have done without the syringes. Just say cyborg and end it there.
And in terms of Danny, since she is kind of this movie's John Connor, which I'll get into why I don't like that in a bit.
No.
She is a nice Mexican girl.
That's it.
Yeah, that's about it.
No, really, like I said, it's so fast-paced. and they just leave the rest of the movie open to just exclusively over-the-top CGI action. There's no real character development or connection like we saw in the first two Terminator films.
In terms of Sarah Connor, where in Terminator 2 she was this kind of neurotic, on the edge, basically psychologically unable to cope with the world that she was going to have to go into because she knew she was the only hope and nobody would believe her. In this movie, she's played up as like kind of jokey almost about her PTSD, and she like doesn't have any signs of like coping with the loss of her son, coping with the loss of the future. The fact that this future that was never going to happen still killed her son in the end.
Which, what was the point of Terminator 2 if he actually succeeded in killing him?
There was no real emotional depth to her actions, which was a shame following up Terminator 2.
It is.
Speaking of, though, so the movie begins with yet another T-800 being sent back in time and gunning down John Connor.
Right.
Immediately.
The movie opened with a CGI younger version of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sarah...
Shooting him.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger kills CGI John Carter, the kid from the second Terminator.
Which, I gotta say, that makes Terminator 2 feel pointless.
Yeah, because
the whole point of that movie was changing the future for the better and making sure things couldn't go wrong. And then it turns out that the future changed exactly in the same way, just with different names. Wow, great moral, guys.
Yeah.
And then she also failed at her mission from Terminator 2 and lost all of her characterization from that movie.
Which then begs the question, why Legion? I mean, Skynet succeeded in killing John Connor. Why did Skynet still fail and this dumbass Legion army succeed? Like, the fuck?
Because phones are bad. Anyways, though, most of the movie follows the characters trying to find ways to deal with the T-1800 hybrid, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And this is another place where you notice the lack of attention to details that T2 had, because the robot from this movie looks exactly the same as the cop that the T-1000 Terminator 2 is impersonating. But in Terminator 2, he was impersonating the officer because he was an established identity and was someone who had a large amount of responsibility.
Sure.
In this movie, the Terminator just looks like that by default, and he doesn't have any reason to keep on looking like that person.
No real reason. He just continues to look like that police officer he mimicked perfectly, or like.
Well, he didn't mimic a police officer. This is a new one. He just looks like that.
Yeah, that's right.
He has no reason to look like that and be attached to that look.
No reason at all. It's just so stupid. I can't with this. It's like you said. So going back to Sarah Connor, no, you are perfectly right. So after dealing with the last two Terminators, you would think that she'd be more broken. Well, not broken. Gosh,
I would think she'd be more broken. Absolutely, I would think that she'd have real problems. Great difficulties with controlling her emotions,
right?
Breaking down, having some kind of response to the things around her, and finding out that the future she wanted to prevent was never prevented. Like this caused mental breaks for her in the previous movie. This caused her to go after a man who was at the time innocent and have to basically mourn her decision at that moment.
Right.
In this, she doesn't really do anything other than make some potato chip jokes.
And she's a hard ass. No, she's
kind of a hard ass, but not really. I don't know. Also, she's sexist now.
She's sexist, that's right.
Yeah, so Sarah Connor's other major change going into this movie is that she has become a major sexist, and she assumes that the only reason Danny's being protected is because she's going to have a man who's going to save the future.
Yeah.
And then she's informed that, not this girl. She's the strongest girl. She's going to lead us all to victory. Which I somehow doubt because she has no military background. She can't even shoot straight.
No, but the magic of cinema gives her some unique accuracy through rage. But
that's later on in the movie. But when the future, she apparently is just a really good public speaker, even though she's not a great public speaker.
I know, that's her stupid secret power, Danny. A sweet.
She has the power of friendship. Okay.
Oh my God! A sweet kid from Mexico becomes the new John Carter against a new robotic threat. It's just.
I'm not sure why they went the effort of having Danny or Grace, because Grace makes enough sense if you don't give her this major drawback that serves no real plot relevance.
Right.
And Danny is generally just kind of a victim character who just needs to be led by the hand almost constantly.
Yeah, right. No, hence why I kind of called it a destination movie, because the protagonist, and I use that word lightly, is just being dragged around by these other characters who, and there's no elaboration, no character building, and it's just stupid.
Yeah. So the other change is that you might have noticed that Arnold Schwarzenegger is in this movie.
Yes.
He is. He's a T-800 by the name of Carl. Basically, he was sent back in time right before Skynet stopped existing. So he stopped getting orders from Skynet, and he changed his wiring to be a family man.
He can't reproduce, but he is living with a Hispanic family. He is raised.
And one thing this movie does a lot is it'll do this thing where it kind of jokingly points out the plot holes or flaws and then never addresses them. Like Sarah Connor points out, like, oh, she never noticed that you weighed 400 pounds, have solid steel under your flesh, and can't have kids. And then he just kind of says something like, I'm good with jokes, and then the scene just moves on.
It does.
And you can bring up the plot holes all you want, but you didn't address them. Like, they also do this thing where they kind of do these jokey, like, half references, where they're like, I could say hasta de vista, but I'm not gonna. But except you did. Yeah. Or, like, when he kind of reaches down for the shades and says, no shades. You still did the reference, but you just kind of did a wink at the audience and pretended like you didn't.
Yeah.
It's pretty lazy writing, and I think it's kind of Deadpool-ish if Deadpool didn't have a follow-up pun to go with it.
Sure, I can kind of see that. It is lazy writing, and it, like you said, any narrative is just shortened to make room exclusively for long, dragged-out fight scenes.
The fight scenes are really long in this movie.
So long.
I think I would compare it to Michael Bay as far as how the military is portrayed, because like the military is really incompetent and shit at their job until they're the good guys, and suddenly we get like shots of explicitly just some commander that we never knew about who gets like a lot of speaking lines.
Oh, are you talking about that commander that gave her the EMP?
The one who shows up, gives her the EMP, and then
he's
apparently her best friend who definitely was not established at any point before that.
His character was from Terminator 2. He was a child at the time because his father was a developer of Skynet, I think.
Was that supposed to be him?
Yeah, that was supposed to be him.
But the kid didn't know what was going on. He just went and showed John his room.
Well, I mean, his dad's dead. I'm sure he would have liked to have had elaboration as to why the dad didn't come back.
Speaking of... Why did A, not get out what Cyberdyne was doing, or Cyberdyne was doing for the research? B, why does nobody seem to be aware of the Terminator or the freakishly strong Austrian man who went around hitting people? Why did nobody have any knowledge at all of what Sarah Connor went through in the 22 years since she stopped the future from happening? Shouldn't there have been parts that she could pull from other Terminators that she hunted? Because she supposedly goes around hunting Terminators, after all.
You know what? Good question. That is a
How is nobody aware of Terminators, in other words?
I don't know. I mean, they're in modern times. Everyone's filming shit, you know. I mean, a robot was just walking past a guy in broad daylight.
And they keep making references to the other Terminator movies as if everyone knows them. Like, you have Grace, when she lands, to the guy that she takes a close film, say, "Don't make me ask." Like she's making a Terminator reference.
Right.
But she wouldn't know about Terminator, apparently, since it's apparently been kept top secret by someone.
I don't know.
But yeah, the military doesn't know about Terminators. They haven't developed any new anti-Terminator technology. They haven't done anything about this threat. Except Cyberdyne knew about Terminators and used the technology to build newer Terminators. That's why the T-1000 exists, because the T-800 was iterated upon and developed further by humans who didn't know what they were doing at the time.
Yeah, I could see that.
In this one, for some reason, they're still called Terminators, despite them being part of Legion.
Right, no.
And they have like the combination of like the T-1000 and T-800, but there were no parts left over from either of them, so they couldn't possibly have developed to the same place that they were in when the future happens. And I don't know, it's stupid.
No, it really is. It really is. Just say Skynet. Just stick with Skynet. Why do you have to?
Because if you said Skynet, it would make Terminator 2 completely pointless. It has to be Legion. It has to be a thing about how the future is unpreventable and nothing ever changes. Which is why the movie ends on a downer note where Sarah Connor is just going to be, like, train this little Mexican girl to be a badass so she can be ready for the future that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
Because Sarah Connor's given up on hope and the idea of ever changing the future for the better.
Yeah, because, that is the note it ends on. They make it sound completely inevitable.
And then Carl and the other Terminator die in each other's arms, and they don't bother telling anyone about, like, hey, Terminators! Or, hey, we have the bodies, skeletons, and technology of the Terminators in this shipping area.
I feel like, how would you even conceal that? And even if you did...
There were people that saw them coming. They're evacuating when they land.
Yeah.
They know about this.
It's apparent to every... The Mexican and United States government should be fully aware
There's
at this
cameras.
point.
There's people with phones.
Cameras, corpses, people with phones. Like I said, the Terminator in broad daylight walked past a guy.
What about the 6 military people? There's so many plot holes like this in this movie in general, which didn't exist in previous movies because they were actually clever about their scripts and worked around it.
Right.
These are the kinds of things you have to address in a Terminator movie, which they don't. This was not a clever script. This was mostly just a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge references to old Terminators without understanding the soul of it.
Right.
And generally it resulted in a very soulless movie that just kind of feels empty while you're watching it.
Very much so. I foolishly thought this would be a redemption from the other installments that bombed, but lo and behold, they remained obnoxiously consistent. It's terrible.
I don't have anything else I want to really get into. I just like nitpicking the movie for things that don't even matter because at its core it's got bad characters and poor plot and poor pacing and too long action scenes and
and I just wanted to vent on why I blew $14 on this movie that I didn't know why. The movies for this week were either going to be Terminator or Countdown, and I'm kind of lamenting my choice. It should have been Countdown.
Countdown could have been so fun.
It could have had a clever concept. What do I know?
I don't care about the clever concept. I just wanted to have fun with a bad movie, not a mediocre movie.
Oh yeah, it was definitely going to be a bad movie either way. But I mean, it could have been. It could, like you said, it could have been fun. It could have been more amusing than this.
Well, alright, if we don't have anything else, then let's get into our final summaries and final non-recommendations, I'm pretty sure. I'll go ahead and start. Terminator Dark Fate promises far, far more than it's able to deliver on. It's very wink, wink, nudge, nudge with the audience, but ultimately it fails on almost every front. The battle scenes are obnoxiously long. The effects are generally mediocre and tend to be pretty obvious when the CG is used. As far as sound design, it's got some really terrible sound design in a few places. I was taken out of the movie by some of the sound design in this. Characters, largely the new characters, don't get much of the spotlight, and a few ones they do get are pretty pointless. And generally, they don't have much chemistry going on with these characters. The plot itself is very basic to the point of being insulting. And overall, the movie just kind of doesn't work in any way. I don't know what the reason there is to see this movie aside from if you really like the word Terminator and just can't get enough of the word Terminator.
And Terminator Dark Fate for me. I foolishly had expectations that this movie was going to undo the other travesties the other movies did and redeem the franchise, but like Nick said, the characters and plot are insulting to the other two movies. It's like a badly fabricated fanfic that tried to make Terminator its own thing, with the whole introduction of Legion and what have you. But it was just a terrible homage and delivery of it. I'm just gonna call it. And You know, on a side note, if you cry when Arnold Schwarzenegger dies, come on. He dies in the other movies.
Hasn't he died in every movie he's been in?
He has! It's like going into watching a Sean Bean movie and thinking he's not gonna die. Wrong, he's gonna die!
I mean, don't worry if you cried about the T-800 dying again. They can bring in another one from the future.
Yeah.
Because they clearly don't care.
They don't!
Alright, well, thank you for joining us for this film. Have a blessed... it's not Halloween anymore. Have a nice Thanksgiving, or skip right over and go straight for Christmas.
Yep. Have a nice holiday or two. Whatever you care to partake in, and we'll see you next movie.